everyone, hello and welcome back to today's weather video. It's been almost 2 weeks, I feel like, since I've done a weather video or any video. It's been crazy with work and all my personal things going on currently, but I am back and finally releasing my summer 2021 outlook. So we're going to go by region and just give a brief kind of consensus of what we can expect over the summer months. The summer months consist of June, July, and August. So we're going to be going obviously in that order, starting in the Northeast and ending in the Pacific Northwest. So if your area is in California, you may want to skip toward the end of the video to actually see your forecast, since this is going to be a little bit more lengthy, I think, than in previous videos. So what do we expect over the next several months as we ramp up summer? It is already May, and a lot of places it already pretty much looks like summer outside. We've had a very warm spring in a lot of the country, especially in March and April. Most of the leafage here in the DC greater area is all out. It was actually all out by pretty much the end of April, which is actually about 2 weeks ahead of schedule. And so with that, we can expect to see a lot of warmer conditions obviously coming into the next several months, but starting here into the Northeast and in mid-Atlantic over the next several months for summer, we can expect actually this year possibly to be a very stormy month. Very stormy and possibly a very humid month. A lot of more moisture is forecasted to be in the air. Not as many cool shots as we have seen in past years with backdoor cold fronts that sweep back into parts of eastern Canada, and they kind of cool, especially New England, down during some of the, the July and August months down to like the 60s during the day. We aren't expecting to see a lot of that happen, but we are expecting to see a lot of energy in the atmosphere, and we're going to see more pop-up thunderstorms than we normally do over the next 3 months. So if you live in the I-95 corridor, interior Northeast, and the Eastern Great Lakes, expect to see pretty much an average type, maybe slightly above average temperature-wise, but it is going to be possibly more likely on the more humid and kind of wet side in this area. Going down into parts of the Southeast and the Gulf states, we are expected to see quite a hot summer. It's already been quite warm in this part of the country, especially Florida. My gosh, you guys have been sizzling. Even back in like March, you've seen 80s and like 90s, and you just all continuing it and everything. Also, Florida's been kind of stormy lately. Usually they end up being a more drier state than most of the United States during the summer months. However, it doesn't seem to be the case this year, or at least the forecast models are saying that. Again, obviously very tropical down in Florida. If you live down there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the Southeast and, the southern parts of the South, and going into the Gulf states and everything, typical, honestly, typical, just, summer season. However, again, hurricane season is right around the corner, obviously, so you're going to have to watch out for any, tropical development along, obviously, the southern and the Gulf Coast and everything. But typically, hot, humid, afternoon thunderstorms, not a whole lot of, cool downs in the south, usually, and it doesn't look like it's going to be happening this year as well. Moving into the Great Lakes, the Ohio River Valley, and the Northern Plains, this is where we are going to see a little bit more of a temperature kind of swing, especially right now. We are kind of fluctuating on a roller coaster through the month of May. Going into the summer months, obviously the temperatures, go up into the, the 70s and 80s. Not expecting to see very many hot streaks or heat waves in this part of the country this summer. It's going to be kind of more of a seesaw in temperatures, or at least that's what the forecast models are saying. No, we're not going to have, cold outbreaks. Obviously, it's summer. Summer, obviously, it's going to be warm and everything, but I'm not expecting a lot of at least thunderstorm activity in the Great Lakes in the upper Midwest, and not expecting a whole lot of heat waves. I mean, like, Chicago, Minneapolis, you do get into the 90s here and there a few times. I don't think we're going to really see that many 90-degree temperatures coming into these parts of the area over the summer months. Maybe going into August, where the dog days of summer are. Basically, that's when we typically see a lot of the heat waves in this part of the country. But I don't think it's going to be as hot as we've seen in previous years. Nonetheless, obviously, things can change. The plains and everything do see more of a temperature seesaw just because of the way that the terrain is. It's much easier for, cooler air to come in and warmer air to just flow up. Obviously, if you live in the plains, you know this. Going into the central part and the southern part of the plains, this is where we're going to see, obviously, a lot of severe weather. It is currently May, so we are in the middle, basically, the height of severe weather month. And it is going to be going into parts of June. At least that's what the forecast models are saying. So if you live from Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, in the front range of the Rockies, Colorado, Wyoming, yes, expect to see possibly a bit more stormy and severe weather, possibly going into at least the first part of summer. Typically, during July and August, the severe weather shifts on over to the Great Lakes in the Northeast. However, it does die down into parts of the plains as we're not seeing that big temperature contrast as we normally do see in the springtime. So with that in mind, I think it will start to settle down severe weather-wise into the latter part of June going into July. But yes, downright hot and sticky. However, I don't think it's going to be as rainfall beneficial coming into this part of the country. I think what's going to happen is the drought from the west, which we'll talk about in just a moment, maybe sliding over into the southern plains. I don't think we're going to see that much precipitation, or at least on average, like we typically do in the summer months, especially in Texas and Oklahoma. So for the West Coast, the desert Southwest, oh yeah, desert Southwest is exactly what you're going to get, because that's exactly what it's going to feel like. And that's what it's exactly going to be like, basically, for the next few months. Unfortunately, this is not good news at all. The drought in the West is just awful. It is extreme moderate, just awful drought, basically, in the desert Southwest. And we cannot squeeze out any moisture, it seems like, at all. And monsoon season just ended, and we didn't even really get a whole lot of rain with that. And we're going into the summer months. I mean, you all, if you live here in, Arizona, Nevada, the valleys of California, it can just get downright hot and just stay that way for, months on end. And it doesn't look like we're going to have any, relief, basically, in terms of precipitation coming into the southwestern part of the United States. I wish I had more better news, but the long-term forecast just doesn't give us a whole lot of beneficial rain that we need. Obviously, last year, 2020, was the worst year for fires here in the actual West, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better this year. Hopefully, it's not as bad as last year, but, we just need some rainfall somewhere here in the actual Southwest, so just pray for some rain if you live in those areas. And then back into the Northern Rockies and the Pacific Northwest, this is the only part of the country where we actually could see possibly cooler than average temperatures. Now, so far this spring, it's actually been quite warm in the Pacific Northwest. If you live in Seattle and Portland, you've known this. It's gone up into the 80s and sometimes cracking 90s in some of the valleys in Oregon and Washington, and even parts of Idaho have been pretty warm for the past, month or so. However, it does look like we could get into kind of more of a wet and kind of just damp pattern, especially going into the latter parts of the summer, mainly August, where it actually could cool down our temperatures and have it dip below what we typically see during that time of year. And it does look like the precipitation is going to be a bit more on the wet side on this in this area as well, going into parts of Montana and Wyoming. And then we never really talk about the other two states again, the lower 48 here. Remember, we have two other states, Hawaii and Alaska, and I have friends in Hawaii and Alaska. Hawaii, it's very, very just kind of like Miami, honestly. The only thing that Hawaii has to basically deal with during the summer months is tropical weather, and sometimes a lot of more heavier downpours and everything. However, it's very typical weather here, kind of like Miami, Florida. You have a heating of the day, pop-up thunderstorms, and it just basically stays in the lower to mid 80s throughout the whole entire season, the whole entire year. It's a very tropical destination in Hawaii, so really the weather there does not really fluctuate that much, so it's going to be basically typical weather as all year around there. Alaska, this is going to be interesting, last but not least. So last year, Anchorage, Alaska hit 90 degrees for the first time ever, which all-time high and everything. So it got very, very warm. So far this spring, Alaska's been extremely cold. We've seen like record-shattered cold in the central and northern parts of the state, up all the way to the Barrow settlement, and even Fairbanks, Alaska, which is in the middle part of Alaska, literally saw temperatures well below zero in the middle of April, which typically does not happen. Usually in this part of the country, the sun angle, even though it's not very all that high, it does stay around for the majority of the day, since they are closer to the actual North Pole. During the summer months, it pretty much stays sunny all the time up here. Now, the forecast obviously does call for temperatures to warm up, but it looks like it's going to be more of an average kind of summer for places in Alaska. So if you like traveling to Alaska, it does look like you're going to have some beautiful weather. They typically don't see a whole lot of storms, a whole lot of offshore storms and everything that form. It's very beautiful up there. If you haven't actually gone up there and visited, go up there this summer, because the long-term forecast looks to be pretty good, and temperatures are usually in the 60s, 70s, and sometimes low 80s. So that is the 2021 outlook that I have for you all. Remember to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll be back again with another one, hopefully soon. Take care.